We are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
That we must see. Now is the time, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Welcome to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, a new streaming service bringing you all new shows of interest to the vital world. Anyway, and today we have Gwen Downing, who is the you are the organizer and director of Connect All.
Yes.
And we'll find all about it. And my co-host, Yana Larson, who knows everything about everything. So Yana, take it away from here.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. Yes, we're very lucky to have Gwen here today. Connect All is an initiative developed by Gwen Downing. Her approach equips individuals and communities to achieve the needs of the self within the global village. It is a framework to ensure safety and hopeful possibilities for all. At its core is the understanding of the logic connection and that every moment does matter. Of course, Gwen will explain all of this. Welcome, Gwen. Thanks for joining us. And I hope I did an okay job of kind of consolidating in some sort of understandable way about what all you do. And I also want to really thank you for being here today, because you in Oklahoma have been having some fun with tornadoes. My goodness. How are you doing there? Are you safe?
I was last night. I also, it was a night of making sure you had what you needed with you, that you were paying attention, very weather aware, listening to what they told you to do. And we didn't just have watches, we had warnings multiple times last night. So I had on my, I don't have a full helmet, but I had a hard hat and my go bag and would go into the place in my house that's safest is the bathroom and stay until, it was felt, or they told you it was okay to leave. So
it was a long night then.
Yes.
And then when I moved out to California about 40 years ago from New York, and they said, how can you go to California? I said, Los Angeles, they have all these earthquakes. Now the rest of the world is suffering.
Yeah, and a lot of that we know, well, obviously there's natural disasters happen for natural reasons. We also know a lot of what's happening in the world with disaster is coming from the impact of climate and environment changes that are due to people. And that's one of the things I talk about in Connect All, on the importance of how environment plays in, that it's not just a natural disaster, but what part are people playing in that, and what can we do to help pull back and fix that?
So tell us a little bit about how you started it and your history. I know you're extremely educated and have all sorts of initials after your name. So I'm sure that has something to do with Connect All.
It did and it didn't, all at the same time. And I'll unpack that a little bit. So my professional background has been in behavioral health. And I spent a lot of my career in doing trauma-informed care, which people are like, what does that even mean? And so it's how do we recognize and respond to trauma, whether that is child abuse or a natural disaster or medical trauma. So that was a lot of my professional background.
So if I say, lie down on my couch and tell me about it, you understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, except we'd update that just a little bit to be a little bit more trauma informed. But yes, absolutely. And so that was my professional background. But what kind of got me to Connect All, you can't separate your personal life and your professional life. You're one person. Like what you're doing impacts. So that's why it's kind of weird to say it was separate, but it was separate. So first let me say, and I'm going to say this in two parts. One thing I've started, not all the time, but at different times sharing is that I cope with being neuroatypical. My brain works a little differently than some people's. And while I had a professional background and was surrounded by colleagues in behavioral health, it wasn't until the last couple of years that I really started unpacking that and understanding what that meant and recognizing that in my own life. And that doesn't tell you anything about Connect All, but it does give you a little bit of context about who I am as a person and how I function as a person. So then with Connect All, back in 2017, I just started having some life experiences. And sometimes you have those experiences that just take you going a different way, and you start asking questions. And I started really looking for answers, and not just the answers people had handed me over the years, not just the answers in front of me, but answers for myself and for who I'm attached to and for all innocent life. When I say all innocent life, that's not just people. That's animals, creatures, like every living thing that's innocent. I want the answer. I don't want to be a source of harm, and I want to protect, right? And so with that, the answers I had been told, the answers I'd been handed, either weren't the right answers, or it wasn't put together correctly. So that kind of led me on this whole path of, okay, well, I'm good at filling in gaps and putting things together. And I had done in my professional career, a lot of my work, most of my work was administrative and doing things like system change and training and consultation and pieces like that. And so those skills definitely helped as I started thinking through what to do. And so out of that, I ended up with Connect All as an initiative and then put a curriculum together for it. And those it wasn't a linear path. It wasn't like, oh, here's my big strategic plan. It was just finding my way. It kind of worked out. And obviously out of one of our mutual friends got connected to We, and that allowed me to have Connect All as an initiative. So that's a little bit about the background of it. And I kind of rambled through that, so I'm happy to clarify or expand on any piece.
My question is, what is innocence?
When you aren't accountable for what you do.
But aren't you always accountable for what you do?
That's when you're innocent, is when you aren't.
When you aren't.
Right.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that. It's
You mean when you don't know any better?
When you don't know and can't do any better, right? Can a frog be more than a frog? As far as I know, a frog is a frog. Now, there's lots of different ways we could look at reality, but to me, a frog is very innocent. Even if it consciously wants to do something, I don't think it really means to hurt me, right?
So it can't turn into a prince.
Not going to turn into a prince either, that I'm aware of. But when I think about innocence, I really am thinking about innocent life. Like, what are we doing to hurt innocent life?
Malcolm, you're getting very, very, what's the word?
Esoteric. Because I don't know if anything is purely innocent. I think just in the human and man, there are the people that are the aggressors, and there are people that want to be led, and there are people that don't mind being told what to do. They don't want to make their own decisions. I don't know if this is innocence. I don't know. Each person has their own set of values, and they have their own set of natural behavior. I don't think two people are alike.
So when I say innocence, I truly mean you can't be held accountable for what you're doing. So that doesn't apply to every person on the planet, right? But if I have hold a newborn baby, is that newborn baby innocent?
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
if I have an adult who their brain can only function in certain ways, could they be an innocent adult? Like there's only so much they're capable of choosing and not choosing due to the way their level of cognition and functionality.
Through some sort of trauma at birth or
They
trauma.
may have some kind of thing. So, and there may still be some things they can definitely be held accountable for, but there may be a lot that they can't be held accountable for, right?
So,
Yeah,
so if a
I
person
agree.
is a mass murderer, but he doesn't really know that it's wrong, is he innocent?
Well, that's a disorder.
Anyway, okay, well, go on from there. I mean, we
Malcolm,
could.
stop being difficult.
I was a philosophy major.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I forgot about that.
right. And we could have a whole discussion about that. But, you know, when I use the word, I use it in its purest form
Okay.
of a living being that can't be held accountable for its actions.
Okay.
So for us to unpack that may take more than us talking about Connect All, but I truly mean, when I talk about innocent life, I'm talking about people and living and non-living things that are completely innocent.
Right. And what do you do with the innocent? and Connect All.
So so it was
Assuming someone is not a mass murderer and they have some cognitive skills.
So I think we need to define where that innocent part came from and then how it goes to Connect All, because I think we got kind of over here on this part. So I was saying my motivation for putting Connect All together. It was for myself. It was for who I'm attached to and for all innocence. That was my motivating factor for putting Connect All together. That I want the absolute best I can have for myself, right? I want the most safety and hope for myself as a person, right? Be as safe as I can and the most hopeful possibilities, because there's a lot of possibilities out there that aren't hopeful, right? So safety, and the best out there. I want that for who I'm attached to. I couldn't be attached to him if I didn't want that, right?
Yeah.
And then being a person that truly believes in goodness and identifies as someone who wants to do as much good in the world as possible, I absolutely want to do my best for all innocent life. How do I protect innocent life? How do I protect the innocents? How do I protect those who can't speak for themselves and protect themselves and those pieces like that? And so those were my driving factors for putting Connect All together. And so with that, the whole point of Connect All is how can we help everyone have the most safety and hopeful possibilities? And that's for all life. And that includes if you're someone on that we may not consider positive. First off, we want to understand that. And then how do we still work with that? Because that's part of our reality. That's part of where we're at. And so kind of some of the groundwork for this goes into the theme of interconnection, Ayana, that, you know, we know is so important. And so many people really don't understand that. It's really hard to get people just to understand how interdependent a lot of times we are. And so sometimes you have to start with just explaining interdependence. And
exactly. I was just going to say that a lot of people say, well, what the heck is interdependent?
Right. And so like in this moment right now, you and Malcolm and I couldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for other people. We aren't creating our own electricity. We didn't build I didn't build my computer or software. I didn't build the Zoom platform we're using. Someone else is making sure today there's lights on in my house, that my house has air in it. I didn't build, like, our lives are interdependent, right? And so many times people are like, well, I'm a very independent person. And I'm like, okay, let's break down every moment of your life and let's see how much you can live without other people. So then you start getting into, well, what if you really did live completely off grid and never saw another human and you made everything by hand? So let's talk about that. You know, one of the things that the environment and climate issues have really shown us is how connected our world is. And there's lots of ways we can talk about this, but this is one example. We know that right now around the globe, even people that aren't contributing to the issue because they don't have anything are being impacted by environment and climate, right? So outside of interdependence, there is also interconnection that there can still be impact, even if it's not dependence. And then we start having, well, I'm not dependent on this part, but then you're like, let's keep pulling this out and looking at it. And for the person that's like, well, I really am going to live on an island, all this, well, leaving out environment and climate, what if someone else decides they want that island, right? We live in a world that there can be ongoing impact. And we talk about that on how do we start finding less violence. And so one of the things that's kind of a key to this is helping people understand that for us all to have the most safety and hopeful possibilities, there's this, we have to understand how interconnected we are in this reality. And that is so bedrock. And if I ever get the funding, I'm going to get someone to make a really cool illustrated video for me because I can explain it all day long, and I can explain how I know every moment I'm accountable and that what I'm doing impacts the life of the child in Pakistan, and the life of the child in Pakistan impacts the retiree in Sweden, and the retiree in Sweden impacts the single mom down in Chile. And the world is interconnected. We are not just these pieces. So yes, on my list of goals is helping people understand that, because with understanding that, there's even more understanding of why each person is so important and how we all work together is so vital.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons when I first met Yana and I found out she's in the group, we the people.
We the world.
We the world.
We the world. I keep on saying that. We the world. Is that I realized a while ago that there's no part of the world, there's no people in the world that are completely independent, that do not depend on other people doing things, whether it's climate change, which is changing everything throughout the world. All you have to do is listen to not local news, but like the BBC or international news. And now the big thing that Fox has is a weather station throughout the world. All these weather conditions are basically affected by our climate change. And as I heard earlier, you're in Oklahoma and you're having the tornadoes, which was, the amount of tornadoes was unheard of a few decades ago. Over here in California, we're having the forest fires. Again, that was unheard of. There was a fire season. Now the fire season is January to December, the same way as hurricanes. There was a Hurricane Alley that went from the south going through the East Coast up to New York. There's so many hurricanes now that they're running out of names. Fish are dying, the food sources are dying, and it's all interrelated. A thing that was brought this to forefront 3 years ago with the COVID. And that started in a little town in China. Whether it was how it started, we still don't know. But that was started and became worldwide, because there's no corner of the earth that's not affected by the communications, whether it be at one time it took weeks to come from England to America to the U.S. shores. Now it takes 3 hours. And what I said that we the world was that we do make me into we.
That's
we all
right.
have to
The we
work, and you're doing a very good job.
Yeah, when she came to us, it was her idea. I think there was of course, it was the funding and how to do all that and some, paperwork. But now we're fiscal sponsors of her initiative, and I just really want it to work because I think it's really fascinating and it's unique. So I really want her to be able to get lots of support and everything for what she's doing.
Right. Did you have a website that people can go on if they want to contribute, or?
Yes, it's connectall.online. So it didn't have a .com or a .net available. It was .online. I was like, well, that works. It's online. So it's connectall.online. And obviously, when you're doing things from grassroots, you're doing it from grassroots. So it may not be the fanciest website, but I'm working on it, and I'm working on things like accessibility. You wish you knew things when you knew things, right? I've been learning more about accessibility, so I'm trying to make sure the site is accessible as possible, and I'm doing it in little chunks as I can. I think it was last weekend I got an accessibility widget on it, and I still know some of the graphics need updated, and I'm working on it, but you work on it as you can. So yes, I do have a website, and on the website, you can download like a synopsis. There's a self-care framework that really goes into like, what can we each do on a daily basis to make the world we need? And there is just a like 1-page front and back synopsis. There's also a guide and workbook. And it's not like a book, but it has enough information to get people started. And everything on there, while people are obviously welcome to donate, you can just download it. So there's no like needing to pay a fee or anything. It's getting the information to people. It also has an area on while I want to be global, you start where you're at. So it has a page on if you need help. So it has like national USA national crisis numbers. It also has apps and techniques that people might want to use if they're in need. And so someone who's not from the US, there may be some useful information on there, because I wanted to make sure, if people are like, I think you should always have something. I don't care if you're a restaurant, you're a place that if you're interacting with people and they need help, you should have a post of here's places to reach out to. But I think that's important because sometimes people don't know.
Now, how do you interact with people on a one-to-one basis? Do you do to one-to-one basis? Do you do lectures? Do you have people that come into your office or house?
Oh, no.
Things?
Right now, all of my stuff is either web-based or in person, and I'm doing training on it. So now if someone really did like, hey, can you help me understand this? Obviously, I'd make time to explain it to someone one-on-one. But for the most part, I do training on it.
Now, I don't know if we could be helpful. My background more is communications. So, I'm getting into this whole, we the world, slowly but surely. And Yana is the one that, she's 24/7 on it. So she's the expert. As I say, if there's any way I got involved in podcasting about 3 years ago. My background is radio and television. So, but I find this is a way to reach people.
Oh, absolutely. On my goal list is to be able to have like short videos people can watch to help them understand. And I tried to do some early on and they were really bad. So I ended up taking them down, but I have on my list to try to do some more with that. So yes.
Right. If we could help you by doing some, like 10-minute, videos that I could put on Malcolm Presents, I'd be glad to work with that.
Yeah,
and even you can check with Yana, and she will, quarterback the whole thing.
Okay.
But basically, think of me as a communications arm.
That works. Yeah, I think one of the things that helps is when people, outside of understanding the interconnection piece, then they're like, well, Gwen, still there's so many. The next part is the world is overwhelming, right? Like, and how am I supposed to take care of myself and take care of every issue on the planet? I can't fight child abuse, domestic violence, my neighborhood watch, it's this, right? So one of the things I did was I was like, okay, let's look at this, and just really went through it and synthesized it all into what if we started from the ground up? Because sometimes we look at all these issues as being out here, right? Like For some people who are familiar with the SDGs, the Global Sustainable Developmental Goals.
Development goals, yes.
Yeah. There's 17 of those. And how do you choose them between 17 issues? But what if they all had something in common? And so what I did was I kind of looked at everything and started doing this cross analysis on what are all our major issues in the world. If we looked at everything we need to look at, including the things that are hopeful, right? Like the scientific breakthroughs, the things we need to make things better. So not just the bad things, but the things we want even better. It was what's either causing them or not letting them be done the best way they should be. And it really came down to finding out that there was a common thing for that. And it was that, and it was two very, very simple pieces. And while it sounds simple, sometimes when we're missing the simple, that's the problem, right? And so it was helping people look at logic, being able to think logically, and just unbiased, objectively thinking things through. And that's not just an education issue. It's not just based on education levels. There are people around with very high degrees who can be very analytical, but they don't still think logically about the other parts of their life, right? And also this part of being connected to yourself, to know your value, to know how you individually function, and to be able to say self-aware. And then with those two things, if we look at those as the foundation, and understanding our world and how it's interconnected, and then build up, and did that from the root up, all of a sudden, we start changing the world at an exponential rate.
Yeah, that brings me back to one of my favorite philosophers, Charlie Brown, Charles Schultz. And he had this one thing where Charlie Brown is, sitting at his desk with a bunch of papers, and Lucy comes up to him and he said, I got so many things to do, I can't do all of it. And Lucy says, well, what you do is you make a list, and you do number one. When you finish with number one, you do number two. And when you do number two, you do number three. You have to start someplace. Yeah. Whereas again, Confucius says a trip of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. You can't think of the whole gestalt. You have to do one step at a time.
Right. But
yeah, and like Gwen says, I was going to say, Gwen says you have to think of yourself, taking care of yourself. And are you hurting yourself, or are you hurting anyone else in your step? Start with that. Did I get that right, Gwen?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Is how am I taking?
Okay.
No, you said it. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you did. Is I want to try not to hurt myself or others as I'm taking those steps, right? And that's the goal. Yes. No, so you got that, Yana. And I think that is, so then I put together the self-care framework. So how do I do that? Because if I have this whole picture in mind that I need to change the world, right? Because for me to have the most safety and hope, for who I'm attached to have the most safety and hope, this world's got to get better, right? So with that, I put together this self-care framework that's about taking care of myself, and as part of taking care of myself, changing the world. And so I use my hand as a way to teach it, and it's called 5 Through the Filter. And the filter, if we think of the filter as a circle in the middle, is kind of our decision-making processor. Like, how do I make all these decisions? How do I know the right thing to do or the best thing to do? And we may not get it right, but we got to at least try to, right? And so if we start with that logic and connection foundation, I got to start making sure I'm thinking logically. I got to make sure I know how I'm connected to myself. I got to know how every moment matters. And am I making a decision towards this whole most safety and hope? Am I making that decision? That's my processor. And then the 5 things are, the first one is what we think of as basic self-care. Just the whole, I got to take care of my body. I got to take care of my chores. I got to take care. And if we have someone we are responsible for as a caretaker, right? The second one is taking care of our environment. What are we doing to take care of our environment? The third is doing something to be prepared. The fourth is to be informed and understand more, because that helps us, right? If I'm learning as I go. And the fifth one's where we see change. because I can do these all day long and the world doesn't change that much. The fifth one is we ask and help others understand how and why we need to change the world.
Yeah.
And that one makes a change.
I hate to interrupt you,
Yes.
but do you realize our half hour is up?
Well, okay then.
Tell the folks again how they get in touch with you on the web or.
I'm online at connectall.online. So it's all one word, CONNECTALL.online, ONLINE.
Fantastic. And thank you very much for coming aboard today, and get in contact with Yana, because I'd love you as a guest in the near future to continue with what you're talking about, because you're giving really valuable advice for people, not only to save the world, but to save their lives.
Thank you.
Yana,
Yes,
thank you.
Gwen, I'm so glad you could be here. You have so much to offer, and this is a perfect platform for you to be able to do that. I'm glad we have it and that you could participate.
Right. As a matter of
Yes,
fact,
thank you.
speak to Yana, maybe we could do, like, as you say, you want to do 10-minute segments. Maybe we could do 10-minute segments to put on Malcolm and we, or Malcolm, and we'll do your own little show.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.
You're listening to Malcolm and We on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming service. Yeah, Yana is doing Me to We. A streaming service heard on the internet.
Me to we. There, got it
Anyway,
right.
have a good week, guys. Bye.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.